Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this month's Connect with Control-M session. My name is Trinidad Gaitan, and I'm a technical support analyst for the Control-M team at BMC. Today, we will be discussing the Control-M Enterprise Manager internal processes. Joining us today are panelists Erwin Sanchez and Rafi Uregian. During this presentation, we recommend going to full screen mode by pressing the full screen button. Please note that this presentation is available via the Files pod on the bottom of your screen. For any questions you may have during the presentation, please feel free to post them in the Q&A pod. We will be addressing your questions at the end of the session. Let's take a look at the agenda. We'll have an overview of the Enterprise Manager and briefly go over its architecture. In the demo, we will be showing how to analyze log files created by the different EM components. Then we'll go over a summary of what we discussed. We'll list some resources including additional knowledge articles, and we'll finish with a live Q&A session. Let's start with our overview. Control-M Enterprise Manager, also referred to as Control-M EM or just EM, is a Control-M component that provides a central point of control for Control-M servers. The Enterprise Manager is able to perform a variety of actions, but the primary ones are configure and monitor job definitions and make configuration changes. Here we can see the architecture of the Enterprise Manager. It includes the following types of subcomponents: Control-M Client, which includes the CCM, Control-M Web, Control-M Client, which is a workload automation client, and Control-M Reporting Facility, now known as Control-M Reports. These enable users to connect to the Control-M environment to generate reports and define, run, and monitor job flows. Then on the right side, we have the EM servers and infrastructure components. We'll go over these in the next slides. The GUI server handles communication between the EM client and Control-M server. GCS identifies and distributes global conditions used to create job dependencies. The gateway handles communication between the EM servers to the Control-M servers. CMS receives information from the configuration agents of the Control-M servers and handles requests from the CCM. SLA Manager monitors critical batch services. Forecast Server helps simulate job patterns to validate the schedules for running jobs on a future date. Self-Service Server monitors self-service services. Web Server provides access for the Control-M clients. And services are a set of microservices which expose shared functionality to various EM applications. Next, we'll look at the infrastructure components. The configuration agent handles administrative requests from the CCM and provides EM server information to the CMS process. The database provides a repository of operational data relating to the functioning of all Control-M installations, and naming service enables each client to locate and connect to the GUI service through CORBA communication protocol. Now we'll start with the demo, and we'll begin with the GUI server, which handles communication between the EM client and the Control-M server. With the GUI server, we'll review its log to show how a LDAP connection looks and a successful login. Then we'll demonstrate how debug is enabled and disabled. And now let's move to our demo. Here we have the lab. First, let's look at the CCM. And we'll look at the LDAP configuration we have set up. So first, we'll go to the Control-M EM component and select System Parameters. In the window that pops up, we'll want to go to the LDAP tab located on the left side. And here we can see our LDAP configuration. I'm going to make a slight change in order to activate the Activate Changes button at the bottom. And I'm going to undo the change. And now let's test this connection. A window will pop up after hitting this button. In this window, we can see here that the domain connected successfully. And for this domain, we named it CWCM, and this will be used later in the logs. Okay, let's go ahead and close this, and we'll go to the Enterprise Manager machine. Currently, we are in the ctm_em/log directory. This is a directory where the log files for the GUI server will be located. Let's go ahead and list these log files. The log files for the GUI server will start with gsr_diag. Let's go ahead and start this up. We can see 3 log files listed here. Let's look at the most recent one. So here we can see where the GUI server is starting up, and it does provide the PID for the process, which currently is 4051. Let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit to look for the LDAP connection. So here we can see where it says get LDAP connection, LDAP host and port. This is where it's obtaining the information for the LDAP server and what port to contact it on. And let's scroll down a little bit further. Here we can see the configuration we made in the CCM to connect to this domain. And if we scroll further down, we can see where it connected successfully. Connect successfully connected with domain CWCM, which is the name that we gave it in the CCM. And that's what a connection to the LDAP server looks like when successful. Now let's show what a login looks like into the client. I have already logged into the CCM with the username emuser. So let's search for this username here. Here at the top, we can see where it's attempting to log into the client. And at the bottom part, we can see where it says user emuser cannot be authenticated in any domain. This is because this is not an LDAP user. This is a local user to the Enterprise Manager. So this message is expected. We scroll down further. Let's see more. We can see where now the Enterprise Manager calls its internal EM authentication to authenticate this user that we're logging in with. And if we scroll further down, we can see that the user was assigned a user ID, which is the alphanumeric string you see afterwards. That is what a successful login looks like. I would like to show you as well how to enable debug for the GUI server in the event that you need to enable debug for further logging. To do that, we'll go back to the CCM. So let's minimize this. And to enable debug, we'll right-click on the GUI server component, select Control Shell, and this will bring up a separate window. The command to enable debug will be diagl space star default space 5. And this will raise the debug level to level 5. And let's hit apply. In the results window at the bottom, you can see where debug was set successfully. Diag context star default was set to diag level 5 and buffer level 5. Now this is very useful when enabling debug for the GUI server because this enables us to enable the debug without having to recycle the component. And to disable the debug, we'll run the similar command except 5. We'll change this to a 2, which is the default logging level. And we'll hit apply again. And now we see a similar message in the bottom where it says the diag level was set to 2. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. And let's go to the next slide. For the next demo, we will be looking at the gateway. The gateway handles communication between the EM servers to the control M servers. We'll be looking to see how the gateway prints that is connected to its control M server and when it is performing a download. For this, we will also show how debug is enabled and disabled. Okay, we are back in the lab now. Let's go ahead and go to the Enterprise Manager machine. The logs for the gateway will be located in the same directory. The log files for the gateway will start with gtw_log. Let's go ahead and list these right now. Now in this environment, we do have 2 control M servers. One of the control M servers is named prod or production, and our other control M server is named latam_prod, which I'll refer to as latinam prod moving forward. And let's take a look at the gateway log for the production control M server. So I would like to show when the gateway connected to the control M server, and that's when the gateway is starting up. I can tell that this log file was a continuation from the top right here, where it says previous log was. So this means the gateway was already running and started a new log. So in order to see when it connected to the control M server, let's look at this log file instead. Okay, in this log, we can see at the very top where it says info starting gateway for data center prod or production. And then a little further down, we can see where it starts the connection with the control M server. It lists the name of the control M server and the port that it's using. And after a successful connection, we will see connection is okay. And then open with CTM prod. And now I do want to show you how a download looks in the gateway logs as well. That will be in the log we were looking at previously. So here we can see where it started the download procedure. When we scroll down a little bit further, we can see some of the information that is being downloaded from the control M server. Here we can see download information, a new AJF or active jobs file. This is where you will see your jobs that are currently running for today's O date. And this information is used for the client to display the jobs for today in the monitoring domain. Let's go ahead and scroll further down. And then we can see the end download and done sending global condition prefix to control M. And that is how a download looks in the gateway logs. I would like to show how to enable debug for the gateway as well. So to do that, we'll go back to the CCM. To enable debug, we'll right-click on the gateway component. And remember, we have 2 gateways, one for each control M server. We'll be doing this one on prod. So go ahead and right-click. We'll go to control shell again, very similar to the GUI server debug. And just like the GUI server, when we run the debug command here, it does not require that you recycle the component. So we'll enable 3 different debugs. The first one is trace_client on. We'll hit apply. And in the result window, you will see done, client's trace set on. The next command we'll run is trace underscore CTM on and hit apply as well. Done, CTM trace set on. And the last command we'll run to enable debug is trace underscore DB8. And we'll also hit apply here. Done, database trace level set to 8. And as I mentioned, this allows us to enable debug for this component without having to recycle it. Once the debug logs have been gathered, you can disable debug from here as well. To do this, we will do trace underscore disable underscore all. We'll hit apply here. And now we can see that in the result window that the debug was set off for all these sub-processes of the gateway. Let's go ahead and go back to our presentation. Let's go to the next slide. For the next demo, we will propagate conditions from one Control-M server to another Control-M server. In order for these conditions to propagate between two Control-M servers, they must go through the GCS process. GCS is responsible for identifying and distributing global conditions used to create job dependencies. Would also like to add that this EM component is the only component that can delay job submissions if the enterprise manager went down or is not available. Okay, we're now back in the lab. I would like to show you a rule we have defined for global conditions. Here in the planning domain, we have the global condition prefixes. Currently, we only have one rule defined. This rule states that any condition that has this prefix, global dash, will be moved from the production Control-M server to the Latin AM production Control-M server. To demonstrate this, I do have two jobs that we will run. So let's go back to the monitoring domain. On the right here, we have the production Control-M server, and on the left side, we have the Latin AM production Control-M server. As you can see, there is a condition between the two jobs indicated by the link connecting them. Let's first free this job and allow it to run. And we can see this job ran and executed successfully. The job ended okay, which means it should have posted its condition. So now let's free this job. And this job ran as well, which means the condition was passed successfully from the production Control-M server to the Latin AM production Control-M server. Now let's see how this looks in the log files. We'll go back to the machine. The log files for the GCS will be located in the same directory. Let's go ahead and list them. Log files will start with GCS underscore log, and they will be all uppercase. Let's go ahead and take a look at the most recent one. So this is how the log looked for the GCS process. We'll go ahead and jump down to the bottom to observe it. We do see here where the GCS process is receiving the condition. And this was added to the GCS process memory. And then we can see this as well where it has the data center production, and the destination would be the Latin American production control server. And then we do see it sending an acknowledgement. And here's some more messages as well. Service assigned to destination object. Destination object waits to be dispatched. And then we see that it was dispatched. And then after this, we should see when it's actually sending the condition. And receive condition confirmed. And then to conclude this, we'll see destination service ends, and then it's deleted from the GCS memory. And that is how the global condition looks when it's propagating from one control server to another. Let's go ahead and go back to the presentation. Next, we'll review the web server, which provides access for the control clients. We will review the logs to show how the HTTP and HTTPS connectors are initiated. Let's go ahead and go back to the lab. Okay, and the first thing we will do is run the utility emweb_status. The output will show us the current status of the web server. You should see Tomcat process up if it is running. And then below that, you will see the HTTP connectors. You can see we have two here, one for port 18080 and one for port 8443, and the status for both of these is up. Now, there may be situations where the status will show down for the port, and you will need to troubleshoot that. In order to see what the issue could be, we can review the Catalina log file, and that is located in a different location. Let's go ahead and cd to that directory now. So the log files for the web server starting up will be located in ctm_em/etsy/emweb/tomcat/log. The log files we want to look at is Catalina log files. Let's take a look at the most recent one. Now, once we're in here, we want to start looking for the word initializing. Now here we can see where it's initializing the protocol handler. We do see it twice, one for port 8443 and one for port 18080. This is the web server trying to listen on those ports when it is starting up. Next, we'll want to look for the word starting. And we want to look at the protocol handlers again. So we'll go ahead and scroll past the first two. And here we can see where it says starting protocol handler. And then once again, we see one for port 8443 and port 18080. Now, in the event that these ports do not come up, you should see an error in these logs that indicate why it is not coming up. And those errors will give some insight into the issue. Let's go ahead and go back to our presentation. Here is a summary of what we discussed today. We showed an overview of the Control-M Enterprise Manager and briefly discussed its architecture. In the demo, we went over the GUI server and how the logs show a successful LDAP connection and login. We also showed how to enable debug without recycling the component. For the gateway, we demonstrated how the logs show a successful connection to the Control-M server and how a download looks. We also showed how to enable debug without recycling the component. We looked at how the GCS propagates conditions from one Control-M server to another Control-M server. And for the web server, we reviewed the Catalina logs to show the connector startup for HTTP and HTTPS. Here are some resources you can use when working with these components. Thank you for attending this presentation. We hope the information provided proved useful in helping you to further understand Control-M Enterprise Manager internal processes. We would like to encourage you to provide your feedback on the webinar in the feedback tab. Please let us know what you thought about the presentation, any topics you may want covered in the future, or any comments and suggestions you may have. Also, we will be sending you a survey in the following days and would appreciate it if you took a few minutes of your time to fill your responses and send these in. You may follow us on social media platforms via Facebook and Twitter. Past BMC webinars may be viewed on BMC Software Control-M channel on YouTube. Today's webinar will be posted in a couple of days. We will now proceed with the Q&A session.